Have you ever sat alone in silence, yet the silence refused to come? Have you ever closed your eyes, longing for stillness, only to find a storm of thoughts crashing through your mind, memories, worries, desires, all moving like wild winds you cannot control? Dear seeker, you are not alone. Since the dawn of time, saints and sages have spoken of a hidden key, buried not in temples or scriptures, but within your own breath. And among those divine teachers, one eternal voice whispers this truth through the sacred winds of the Himalayas: when prana is controlled, the mind is controlled. These are the immortal words of Maha Avataar Babaji, the ever-living yogi, the flame of Sanatana Dharma who watches over humanity's inner evolution. Babaji does not seek fame. He does not descend into noise. He appears only in stillness, to those who are ready. And his guidance is not loud, but precise, eternal, and piercing. The breath is the gateway, the mind is the servant. Control the gateway, and the kingdom becomes yours. In this age of chaos and mental fatigue, the wisdom of Babaji returns as a silent thunder, a sacred map to reclaim your inner mastery. This is not mere philosophy. This is a path, a science, a sadhana. You are about to embark on a deep journey, not through belief, but through breath itself. Come closer. Let your heart soften, let your breath slow. In this video, we shall walk hand in hand with Babaji's teachings, and unveil the ancient secret, how the rhythm of your breath shapes the destiny of your mind, and how, through practice, devotion, and awareness, you may return to the unshakable peace that waits quietly within you. Welcome, dear soul. The journey inward now begins. Who is Maha Avataar Babaji? This question is not easily answered, for Babaji is not bound by the pages of history nor by the timelines of men. He is the eternal flame hidden behind the veil of time, the silent witness of all ages, the immortal yogi who watches over the spiritual evolution of humanity from the snow-veiled peaks of the Himalayas. It is said that he has retained his physical body for thousands of years, not through magic, but through perfect union with the divine and absolute mastery over prana, the life force. To his chosen disciples, Babaji reveals not just techniques but the divine essence behind them. He is the living guardian of Kriya Yoga, the sacred science of breath and consciousness. The revered Lahiri Mahasaya, called by Babaji in 1861, described him as a radiant being, untouched by time, with eyes that saw directly into the soul. But Babaji does not announce his presence. He appears when the seeker is ready, when the soul cries out for truth beyond illusion, when the heart is humble enough to listen. He teaches not through sermons, but through transmission, from silence to silence, breath to breath. His presence is known by the awakening it stirs within. Those who have felt him speak of a love so vast it melts fear, a stillness so deep it silences the mind. And yet, Babaji's message is ever simple: control the prana, and the mind will follow. Still the breath, and the soul shall speak. To invoke Babaji is to invite discipline, clarity, and grace into your sadhana. He is not a distant legend, dear seeker. He is as near as your next conscious breath. To walk the path of breath and inner stillness is to walk the path toward him. To walk the path of inner mastery, as Babaji guides, one must first understand the sacred forces at play, prana and mind, not as concepts, but as living realities within your being. Prana is not simply air. It is the subtle breath behind the breath, the divine intelligence that animates all life. It moves in the trees, in the oceans, in the stars, and within you. Prana is the sacred current of life itself, the cosmic river flowing through your nerves, your thoughts, your emotions. It is the vehicle of consciousness, the silent pulse of the universe riding on every breath you take. Babaji has often revealed that prana is the horse, and the mind is the rider. If the horse runs wild, the rider is dragged helplessly through the dirt. But if the horse is trained, steady, and still, the rider may go wherever he chooses, with power and peace. And what then is the mind? The mind is not the self, it is the instrument of perception, the lens through which we see. It can reflect heaven or distort it into illusion. Restless, untrained, the mind jumps from thought to thought like a monkey in a burning forest. But in its higher state, when harmonized by prana, the mind becomes a clear mirror, reflecting truth, beauty, and inner silence. Babaji teaches that these two, prana and mind, are bound together like the wind and the waves. The breath moves, and the mind follows. Still the breath, and the mind sinks into peace. This is not just poetry, it is direct yogic science. To know prana is to hold the reins of your own destiny. To understand the mind is to stop being its servant and become its master. With this awareness, you are no longer a wanderer, you begin to walk the inner path with clarity and control. The breath and the mind are twin flames, dancing to the same invisible rhythm. As Babaji teaches, they are inseparable, woven together by threads of divine energy. When one moves, the other follows. When one stills, the other too dissolves into silence. Have you noticed, dear seeker, how your breath changes with your emotions? In anger, the breath becomes jagged. In fear, it becomes shallow. In peace, it flows like a quiet river. This is not coincidence, it is cosmic design. The breath is the doorway to the mind. And this is why Babaji, the deathless yogi, emphasizes again and again, control of breath is control of mind. For thousands of years, the great rishis did not try to tame the mind by force. Instead, they sat in stillness and began with the breath. They knew that the breath is the remote control of consciousness. By learning its secret rhythms, one can transform agitation into serenity, confusion into clarity, and fear into devotion. Babaji revealed to his disciples that each inhalation draws energy into the system, and each exhalation releases karmic tension. The mind, like a restless bird, can never be captured by thinking alone, but it perches naturally when the breath becomes calm. He would say, do not fight the mind. Master the breath, and the mind will bow on its own. This is the gentle path of true yoga. The ancient sages called the breath svarupa, the bridge between the body and the soul. When you take conscious charge of your breath, you are not merely calming yourself, you are tuning the entire instrument of your being to a higher vibration. In that state, the mind becomes your ally, not your enemy. And from that stillness, your true self begins to emerge, not as a concept, but as a direct experience. This is the inner alchemy Babaji wishes for every sincere seeker. There is a reason why all sages return, again and again, to the breath, not out of simplicity, but because within it lies a hidden science, a sacred power that transcends philosophy. This is the path of pranayama, the conscious regulation of life force through breath, and it is at the very heart of Babaji's eternal teachings. To those who were ready, Babaji would gently reveal, pranayama is not just breath work, it is the golden thread that weaves the soul back into harmony with the infinite. With each controlled breath, the veil between the seen and unseen begins to lift. You are no longer bound by the chaos of thought or the heaviness of emotion. Through pranayama, you learn not just to inhale air, but to draw in cosmic intelligence, to circulate divine vitality, and to exhale that which no longer serves your highest self. Babaji entrusted to Lahiri Mahasaya the sacred method of Kriya Pranayama, a technique of inner transformation so refined, so potent, that it can purify lifetimes of mental restlessness when practiced with devotion. In this sacred Kriya, the breath becomes an elevator, guiding prana up the Sushumna Nadi, the central channel of light, awakening the higher centers of consciousness. But even before this, Babaji lovingly advises seekers to begin simply. Sit. Observe. Breathe with reverence. Even the most basic rhythm, when done with awareness, becomes a doorway to higher states. As the breath flows evenly, the mind steadies. As the breath slows, the soul begins to shine. This is not imagination, it is the lived truth of every sincere practitioner. In pranayama, the inner alchemy begins. Fire becomes light. Breath becomes mantra. Restlessness dissolves into stillness. And within that stillness, the immortal presence of Babaji can be felt, not as a figure, but as a living current moving within you. This is the silent revolution of the yogi. Breath alone is not enough. For it to carry the seeker into the inner sanctum of stillness, it must be guided by discipline and fueled by devotion. This is the sacred foundation upon which all true transformation rests. Babaji, the ever-silent flame of the Himalayas, teaches not through force but through presence, and his presence awakens in the seeker a yearning to walk the path with reverence. He reminds us gently, without discipline, practice becomes hollow. Without devotion, discipline becomes dry. But when the two unite, the soul begins to bloom like a lotus rising through the waters. The breath, however refined, must be accompanied by a heart that bows. Not out of fear, but out of love for the higher self and for the divine from which it came. Babaji does not ask for perfection. He asks for sincerity. He does not demand rituals, but presence. The true sadhana, he says, is not measured in hours but in depth, in how purely the breath flows, how honestly the heart offers itself, how silently the ego steps aside. Discipline, in this context, is not suppression, it is alignment. It is the soul choosing again and again to return to stillness, no matter how many times it forgets. And devotion is the fire that keeps that return from becoming mechanical. When your breath becomes a prayer, and your daily effort an offering, you are no longer practicing yoga, you are living it. Babaji often reminds his devotees, each breath mastered is a step closer to the eternal. Each moment of discipline is a gateway to grace. The divine meets the seeker halfway. When you show up in humility, the infinite shows up in silence. And in that silence, the breath slows, the mind bows, and Babaji's light begins to guide you from within, not as a voice, but as a vibration, steady and true. The fruits of breath mastery are not distant, theoretical, or confined to the realms of yogic texts, they are immediate, living, and tangible. When the breath is brought under conscious control, it is as if a veil is lifted from the world. The colors seem deeper. The present moment grows wider. The mind, once a restless wanderer, begins to rest like a bird coming home to its nest. Babaji has taught that pranayama does not merely calm the mind, it reshapes the entire inner landscape. Through breath, the seeker does not escape life, but learns to meet it with clarity, stillness, and quiet strength. Mental fog dissolves. Thoughts lose their grip. Emotions no longer dictate your direction, they become waves on a surface you no longer fear. Anxiety melts into awareness. Fatigue gives way to a deep, natural vitality. The nervous system, once frayed from modern chaos, begins to hum with a rhythm closer to the eternal. Babaji, in his grace, reminds us, when the inner winds are stilled, the light of the soul reflects without distortion. This light brings not only spiritual insight but practical transformation, greater focus, deeper sleep, balanced emotions, enhanced creativity, and a profound resilience that does not waver in difficulty. But above all, the true benefit is this: you begin to feel yourself again, not the self created by thought and memory, but the quiet presence behind it all. And it is here, in this gentle space between breaths, that Babaji's presence becomes known. Not as an outer master, but as the awakened force within. In breath mastery, the seeker finds not just peace, but purpose. Not just silence, but connection. It is the beginning of a life lived from the center, guided not by reaction but by inner truth. This is the blessing Babaji wishes for every soul. And so, dear soul, we arrive at the end of this sacred unfolding, but truly, this is only the beginning. You have now glimpsed what Maha Avataar Babaji has long whispered through the winds of eternity: when prana is controlled, the mind is controlled. You have walked with us through the mysteries of prana, the subtle workings of the mind, the sacred bridge of breath, the alchemy of pranayama, and the inner fire of discipline and devotion. And now, you know, not just in thought, but in the quiet echo of your being, that the path to peace, clarity, and divine connection lies not in escaping life, but in breathing through it with awareness. Babaji's path is not a distant legend, it is alive within you, with every conscious breath you take. Begin gently. Sit in silence. Let your breath guide you home. And remember, as Babaji teaches, even a single breath taken in stillness, with full awareness, becomes a step toward liberation. Let your daily practice become a sacred offering. Let your breath become your mantra. And in time, the noise of the world will fade, and the silence of the self will rise like a sun within. If this teaching touched something within you, I invite you to share your reflections in the comments below. What part of this journey resonated most deeply with you? Have you begun to explore your breath? What would you like to learn next on this sacred path? Tell us, what teachings, practices, or questions would you like to explore in future videos? Your voice helps shape this living space of wisdom and devotion. And if you feel called, like this video, subscribe to stay connected, and share this light with others who are ready to receive it. Until next time, dear seeker. May your breath be steady. May your heart be open. And may Babaji's grace walk with you always.